Greetings, I'm Hondo, and this is my part 2 of my NAMM summary. I'll put a link to part 1 up in the corner so you can check that out. Part 1 was more about gear and basses and stuff like that. This is more about some utilitarian stuff. I'm going to talk about an app that lets you do a stem separation on completely finished songs, and some software that helps with remote recording, and some pieces of pro audio gear that are particularly useful for bass. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please hang out and check this stuff out with me. And if it's not, I totally understand. This is going to be mostly talking, and I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, so I get it. But yeah, if you're interested, stick around, and let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this app by the name of Moises. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's Moises. And I'll put a link for it down in the description. And basically what this app lets you do is do stem separation. So you could have a 2-track or a mix of a completely finished song, and this app can go in and pull particular parts of the song out and let you treat them differently. So you could go in and take a full finished track and maybe just turn up the bass or take out the guitars or things like that. This app could be super cool for people who are doing a couple of different things. One, it's helpful for learning songs if you have to learn them really fast and you're kind of like on a deadline, because if you have, say, maybe not the greatest playback system, so you can't really hear the bass super clear, you can go in and just turn the bass up in the mix, which is incredibly useful. And the other thing that this does that's useful for song learning is it will actually tell you the key of the song, and it's actually not bad at telling you the chords that are going by. So that can be really useful if you're kind of like stuck in a pinch and have a really short period of time to learn a song in. I definitely don't recommend you regularly using it because it'll slow down your ear training. But if you're stuck and you got to do something to play a gig or do a performance or something like that, by any means necessary, so I get that. The other thing that this can let you do is if you're a person that likes doing covers, so you like posting like covers on Instagram or things like that, you can go in and take out the original bass and put your bass in there, so then you can play freely and you don't have to worry about the other bass part in there getting in the way, especially if you're somebody that likes embellishing and doing some other fun stuff that might not be part of the original track. The last thing that would be super cool for this practice-wise is you can make your own play-along tracks. So you could take your favorite songs and then use this app to take the bass parts out, and then you can practice having the right feel and everything without the original bass part there. So you can really get a good idea if you're playing your right timing, playing the right notes, and so on and so forth. So I think this could be really useful in a utilitarian way, and you can use this on your phone and you can use it on the computer, and you don't need a DAW. So if you're not a person who regularly records and doesn't have a DAW to use, it doesn't matter. You can use this anyway. And this is on a subscription, which is not the best. I know a lot of people don't like that, but the subscription's only $40 a year for the basic version. So that's a pretty good deal, I think, for what it does. And like I said before, I'll put a link in the description down below if you want to check it out. And I went ahead and got the full version, just in case you guys would like to see a video on it. So let me know down in the comments if you would like to see a video. I probably could put together like a review and kind of show you how it works and show you what it's capable of and how good it is at actually doing the stem separation, because not all stem separation apps are created equal. But yeah, if you'd be interested in that, let me know down in the comments and I'll do a full review on it. So if you're like me, you often end up working with people who might not necessarily be kind of in close proximity to you. They might be in a different state, or, in my case, on the other side of the country sometimes. And if that's the case, the Source Elements software might be a real game changer for you. Shout out to Cole Caparoon.
Actually a game changer.
In short, this software allows you to kind of like, if you are a bass player and you're working with a producer, you can both be in the same DAW session. You can see each other through a video chat and you can talk to each other via talkback. And while you record, they will hear what you're recording in real time. And what shows up in their DAW is an AAC file, which is like not high quality. But what they can do once everything is done is basically hit a button that says replace, if I'm not mistaken, and it goes and gets all of the high quality recordings that you actually recorded in your session and downloads it into the other person's session, and it replaces all the AAC files without you having to go in and do anything. So it does it all automatically, which is really, really cool. And I can see this being super useful if you have like a singer that you're working with, if you're the producer, or if you're a bass player, working with somebody else that you need to record tracks for. They can give you feedback in real time. They can see you, they can kind of tell how you're vibing with the track and whatnot, and it can kind of bring you a little bit closer to that experience of like sitting in the studio with somebody and working with them. So I think this is really cool. If you go to the website, and I'll put a link down in the description. If you go to the website, you can do a trial of the software. And if you're not inclined to do that, I also have some tracks that I need to record later on this year for some EPs and some albums that I might be doing remotely. So if you would like to see what that looks like, I can get this software and do a demo for you guys. So let me know if you would like to see that down in the comments. So before I get into this section, I just want to give you a little bit of context so you know why I'm even saying this on the bass channel. But one of the most important things that I've learned in my 17 years now of doing kind of audio engineering in some way, shape, or form is that you have to get the sounds you want right in the beginning in order for the rest of the process to work out well. The more you leave to the next step in the process, the more difficult things will be. So if you're going into the studio to record and you want a particular bass sound, just try to get that bass sound right out of the gate and don't kind of rely on the mix engineer to get it for you later. To that end, I went up to the to the Cranborne booth in the Pro Audio section of NAMM, and they had 3 pieces of gear there that were extremely cool, and I think in particular for bassists, they're really nice, and they're all relatively affordable. The first thing is a preamp, and the preamp is about $360, and that was called the Camden 500, and basically what this preamp is, it's a super clean preamp, but it has a preamp saturation on a knob, and preamp saturation can really, really make a difference with your bass tone because it can effectively let your bass be heard a little bit clearer on not so great speakers, and it can also help your bass cut in the mix without having to turn it up super loud, which is really nice because you get to save kind of real estate in the mix. Mix engineers will probably be pretty happy about that if you send them a track like that. It also has 2 different types of saturation. One is thump, which is a little bit more kind of like low end, low mid focused, and the other one is cream, which is a little more focused in the mids and the high mids. And I got to hear some tracks from those before, and it's really, really cool. It can really make a difference between you having kind of like what people will call like a sterile DI sound and a kind of like warm, fat tone that's not necessarily distorted, but it's just nice and audible in a mix, and it just kind of sits right without you having to do a lot to it. The next piece is a Carnaby EQ, I believe it's called, which is a harmonic EQ, and it's different from a regular EQ in the sense that regular EQs kind of just turn frequencies up and down. That's an oversimplification, but for this purpose, they just turn frequencies up and down. Now, the harmonic EQ actually adds in harmonics where you're turning it up. So, say for instance, if you record a bass with the tone rolled off, and you don't have a lot of kind of like the 1.5K range, which is a range that kind of cuts for most bass tracks. If there's not anything there, when you go to boost it, you're going to have to turn the EQ way up to get kind of any kind of signal from it. And that can often end up with you having like weird artifacts, like things start ringing and sounding like overly resonant, or sometimes you start messing with other frequencies that are nearby that you didn't want to mess with. Now with this EQ, it adds harmonics instead. So it basically creates information where there wasn't any. So instead of you trying to turn up nothing, it's creating harmonics in that range. So it'll let your bass be a little bit more audible, but it'll still kind of keep the same general character, which is really, really nice. Now, it also does something cool when you cut with this EQ, and I think the cut's actually cooler than the boost. Say, for instance, if you have a bass that's like a little bit too muddy and you need to cut out 250 hertz. With this EQ, when you cut out the 250 hertz, it brings in harmonics from beneath 250 hertz to kind of fill the hole that you left behind. So instead of kind of leaving this kind of like hollowed out thin bass sound, you get some other harmonics in there that are kind of like nice and smooth and controlled. And then that way you still keep kind of all the energy in your bass tone, but then you've removed the muddiness problem. So I haven't seen anything like this. Even plugin wise, I don't know that I've seen anything that does this exact thing. So it seems pretty unique. And I tried it on a bass track and I was able to get like 3 or 4 significantly different feeling bass sounds just by messing with this EQ, and they all sounded good. So this is definitely something I'm going to grab. Given like I'm doing recordings and doing tracks all the time, this could be a real lifesaver. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is a compressor, and it is called the Brick Lane, and the Brick Lane comes in at about $5.99 if I'm not mistaken. I'll put the price on the screen and put links to this stuff down in the description. But this compressor basically has every type of compression you could possibly want, and it also has the saturations that go along with those compressions. So say for instance you like 1176 style compression, which is like what the Cali 76 pedal is based on. If you really like that, there's an 1176 mode on here. I believe it's called Smash, and you can use that mode to get those types of attack and release curves. And then there's a knob, just like with the Camden, there's a knob on here to turn up the saturation. Now, the cool thing about this is that the saturation sound changes depending on which model of compression you pick. So if you pick the 1176, it's going to have a FET style saturation because 1176 compressors are FET style compressors. Now, if you pick, I believe it's the flow style, then that's an optical compressors, which are usually tube based. So then the saturation sounds like tube saturation, which is just such a cool idea. And again, for $5.99, in order for you to get all those different types of compression sounds, it will cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So the fact that you're getting something like this that has an all analog circuit in it is just really, really cool and really interesting. And each one of these units, I think the Carnaby EQ is $4.99. So you have a preamp at about $350. This super unique harmonic EQ at $500, and then basically an end-all be-all compressor for $600. And if you can get all three of those things in a chassis and be under $1,500 and have an incredibly nice recording chain. And that can kind of be a thing that sets you apart from some other people that might be, getting gigs in your area or getting session work in your area. Because getting really, really nice recorded tones as far as, the mix engineer is concerned, that's a big plus. So I'll definitely be getting all three of these things. And if you're interested in seeing kind of like what type of difference they really make when you're doing a like tracking session or something like that, let me know down in the comments, and I'll shoot some video about when I'm tracking for these EPs that I'm working on later on this year, and I'll give you kind of like some real world examples of what kind of differences they can make. If any of this stuff was interesting to you, let me know down in the comments, because I'm thinking about expanding what I cover here on the channel to not just be restricted to like basses and pedals and stuff, but I want to do some more like amp demos and recording demos and things of that nature. So if that stuff is something you would like to see, let me know, because I'm trying to get a gauge of how much people actually want to see that or not. But that's about all of my info dump for NAMM 2025. It was a great event, and there's a lot of cool stuff, and hopefully I see you there next year. But until next time, I hope you're staying happy, staying healthy, and take it easy.